Okay, here we go. It looks like we are streaming live. This is the Friday, May 1st edition of None of the Above, and I'm Amy Peikoff. I've got my co-host James Valiant. You see him there at the bottom of the screen, and we are joined by Quent and Linda Cordair of Cordair Fine Art in Napa Valley. Welcome to you two. How are you?
Thank you.
All things considered, we're well. Thank you. Hello, welcome.
That's, I think, what we can all say during this time. If anybody ever asks us how we're doing, if we say we're doing well, all things considered, that's about the best that you can hope for. So it looks like we are streaming live over on YouTube. And let me make sure that my audio is set to all the proper goodies. Okay, it looks like it's good for me. Hopefully someone will come over there at the YouTube chat and tell us they can hear us okay. But I can hear you guys fine, so I assume we're all good here. We are going to, okay, yeah, we got 3 people watching. So yeah, please, people over there, if you want to say hi, hey in the chat and say that you can hear us, and I know we can see us. You guys look great. You're in a beautiful setting there over at the gallery, right?
As always.
We are actually in our home gallery.
Oh, okay. So your home looks like a gallery as well.
Well, in places we try to. That's a print of one of my paintings, Molly's Swing, and it just happens to be in our dining room. So.
Okay. Well, so first, could you start just by telling us a bit about your business? Because there's going to be people who are tuning in who don't actually know you the way I've known your gallery for years, and I've been to your gallery. Although I wish I could go on Monday. I can't. But tell us about the gallery first.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yep.
That's your job.
Quent founded the gallery in 1996, and we're in Burlingame for around 12 or 13 years, I think, before we moved to Napa. And we've been doing business here in a beautiful 3,000, well, actually with back room, 3,600 square foot, just wonderful place where we have 30 artists who create beautiful paintings and sculptures that we're very proud to represent, like the one behind us.
Beautiful. And so how has this period affected your business? Have you been able to conduct some business online? And what was it been like during the shutdown?
It's been challenging. Like so many other things right now, we are not supposed to be in the gallery except to do things that are either inventory based or payroll based. There's some traffic downtown, not a lot. People are out walking, jogging, exercising, window shopping, if you will. And we do have a very good online presence, and we still are seeing people on the website, of course, every day. But challenging times, in any case, make buying art right now difficult for a lot of people, not everybody. And our clients have been great about reaching out to us via social media, via personal email, and showing their support. And those who can are, and those who want to will when they can. As far as buying.
Have you been able to do some business transactions during this time, or is it difficult for people if they can't actually see the art in person?
It's better when they can see it in person, and often seeing it in person will lead to something down the line. Maybe it's a month later, a week later, sometimes it's years later after having been in the gallery that someone will reach out and say, hey, do you still have this? Or I was there and I loved everything, but I finally find myself in a position where I want to make this happen.
And there's still to this day, even though everyone is becoming more and more accustomed to buying things sight unseen off the internet or off of somebody's website, having a physical store, having a physical storefront for the product that we sell is still an important factor for earning and keeping the trust, particularly people who have never met us. Now, granted, we've sold art to some of our best clients over the years have been people who have never come into the gallery. But the fact that we have an operating store in gallery in downtown Napa that conveys, you know, a certain amount of trustworthiness, and that they can feel safe ordering something from us because there's a real a physical storefront. There's a lot at stake. Whereas galleries who have tried to do things just off the internet and not have any physical presence at all, you don't know if that person's going to be around to it, or where they really are, or whether or not
if they really are.
Well, and just for myself, I don't think I would purchase a work of art unless I'd seen it in person for some reason.
And a lot of people
want to get the feel for it, the size of it, you know.
But just so you know, we do give you that option. We will ship it to you, and if you're not happy, you can send it back.
Right. But a storefront is important to your business.
Yeah,
Though.
yeah, it's credibility.
No, and I like what you said too. I mean, it's true that sometimes someone who's walking by and just pops in and takes a peek at something isn't necessarily in the buying mode that particular day, but then they'll remember and they'll say, oh, I saw that. And it's particularly with sculpture, where you really do get a lot more by seeing it in all dimensions. Then, you know, you go there, you see it, you get a feel for it. And then down the line, when you say, oh, I've got this wall and I don't know what I want to put on it, or gee, you know, I remember that sculpture and it really affected me, and then suddenly you want to buy it later. And so I think that the storefront experience, like you say, is quite valuable.
I'm sorry.
With sculpture particularly, it's to me, it's the way I try to describe it to people as far as how different it is being in the presence in the room with the sculpture. It's very similar to, and for the same reasons, as being in the room with a person, as opposed to what we're doing right now. This is great. It's nice. You can see pictures of people online. You can see videos. We could do 360 video, but nothing like the experience of standing in front of James Valiant, talking to him at a bar in Cleveland, and wow, you get the full sense of the presence of this person.
Oh, we did that. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's what's driving. It's what's one of the things that is so frustrating for everyone right now is not being allowed to be in the presence of other people, and that's one of the people that we love. We can't get to our granddaughter in Florida right now. You know, it's hard for grandparents to be with their grandchildren. So just bringing up that as a way for people to understand, for the people who value sculpture and love sculpture, being in its presence is totally different than seeing it. You'll hear that about the David. People go and see the David, and no matter how many photos you see, you're in
totally different experience.
You turn that corner and you look down the corridor, and it's at the end of the corridor, and you're blown away.
Yeah. To be in the presence of a Michelangelo sculpture is an entirely different thing than, like you say, no matter how many pictures you've seen.
Right.
Happy pre-lockdown story. We did have someone local pop in the gallery. They were out strolling after dinner, and he called me maybe 3 or 4 days later and said, you know, we were in the other night, and my wife just loved the gallery, and she fell in love with this, and her birthday's coming, and, you know, can we set this up as a surprise? I said, absolutely. But it wasn't an immediate purchase. This is something that is going to happen after the fact.
Right.
No, and that's the whole thing. You just don't know what sort of leads and things and you can generate. And plus just the connection of being able to share art with people, even if it doesn't necessarily end up with a transaction. One of the things that you guys have done is help renew appreciation for romantic and realistic art, representational art, in a way that some other galleries might not be doing as much. So there's this also sort of a niche that you have developed, and it's part of it is because people can just walk by. They aren't necessarily looking for you, and then suddenly they see it and they get attracted and come in. And so, no, I could see that. So when the lockdowns first happened, maybe you were like me, where you thought, oh, maybe this will go on for a few weeks and then, the governors are going to get their, what together, and that, that the emergency part of it's going to be gone, and that everything is going to get turned back to normal. But then, you're like me, you're in California, and James is too, and we're listening to Newsom. And to this day, Newsom is talking about a phase 2 that doesn't start for some months, and probably you would be included in a phase 2, I assume. I don't know. It's not even really clear what gets to be in phase 2. But, you didn't anticipate this, I guess, at the beginning when we started talking about lockdowns, right?
Well, if anyone could have told us 6 weeks ago, when this started for us here in Napa, that we would be 6 weeks further down the road with only 60-ish cases in the entire county of Napa right now, with our 3 hospitals, with only 3 people hospitalized, 1 person in ICU, and we would still be facing an indefinite duration of closure ahead, I would have thought you were absolutely insane. There's no that wasn't the idea from the beginning. And even in our health order that was written up here, they gave the defense they gave the numbers in the Bay Area, and they were rising, and because of the potential risk, and we had to flatten the curve. And just make sure that the hospitals don't get overwhelmed with this big surge that everybody thought might be coming.
They're furloughing our hospital workers.
Right. California hospitals are largely empty.
Yeah. So the situation that we're in now would not have been anticipated back then. And again, we thought it'd be a few weeks, and you're doing it maybe to be nice and help out your healthcare workers that you respect, and there's not necessarily a huge but then here we are 6 weeks later, and Newsom is
there's no end in sight. There's no end in sight. You've been effectively deprived. If it weren't for the internet, you would be completely effectively deprived of your capacity to earn a living.
Yep.
That's simple, right?
It's
to feed yourself in the way you've been feeding yourself for many years now.
Oh no,
Did we lose them?
We may have. No, there we are. Good.
Sorry.
Oh no, it's okay.
Thought of a kind of an analogy this morning. Being Californians, we've been through this the last fire season, where all of a sudden you're dealing with PG&E complete cutoffs, fires, and can you imagine if, in response to, say, fire danger this coming year, if they decided, well, in order for there to be no more fires coming forward or going forward, we're just going to shut off the power for 6 whole weeks during the height of fire danger, and then we're going to wait indefinitely until there's no more fire danger, until the first rains come.
Right.
You can't live that way. You can't eliminate all the danger by shutting down life and what's required for living. And I think people might understand, having been through the last set of rolling blackouts that we had because of the fires. It's a very similar approach to facing what it might be at first an emergency. Now, granted, when the fire started rolling around Napa Valley here, yeah, absolutely. Cut the power off and do what you need to do to get the fire out. But once you get the fire out, don't leave the power off to keep there from being any more fires for the next 3 months.
That's a beautiful analogy. I mean, it's really perfect. Yeah,
it really is. Even if there was a need for some kind of restriction, that it just simply cannot go on. They've deprived people of their capacity to earn a living. No one seems to be looking at it that way. It astonishes me.
Well, and they're not allowing anybody to plan.
Right.
And being able to you can't
There's
even
no way to
plan.
And
There's
a point I wanted to
absolutely no way to budget moving forward. Not am I budgeting for 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks?
Right. Well, we don't know, right?
So given given that this is the scenario, you have decided to go ahead under protest to reopen on Monday. And as I understand it, maybe the Monday was the date that you had expected Newsom's order to expire. Is that correct? Or why did you choose this coming Monday?
Well, by it was about 10 days or so, 2 weeks ago, when the renewed orders started processing through from both the state and then the county, and they started dropping any end date to them. And by then you were starting to hear how indefinite the states, not only how indefinite the state's new orders were going to last, but also getting the sense that, at least here in the in Napa and in the North Bay, the local authorities seem to be content to accept whatever direction that was coming down from the state. So
right,
there was
there are
no
some localities that are fighting it. Down here, Huntington Beach is decided to fight
Orange
it.
County,
But you guys up there, no one's fighting it?
no, zero. And we're so we're left defenseless, basically, and with no way to live. As I said in my letter, you have to work to live, and it's not just our gallery. Our economy is dying around us by the day, and for people who haven't been in business, particularly small business, they may not see they may not see the damage that's being done by the hour, by the day, by the week for the longer term. But
Right.
every single day that we're closed down is one day closer, is maybe 1 week closer or 1 month closer to how long we can last, or any of the wineries or the restaurants.
Just looking at your art, it's clear the love and the hard work and the devotion you guys have put into it. But it's your dream. It's your soul.
Your life.
In effect, exactly your life. How many? And you're just one example. How many small businesses, which represent people's lifelong hard work and dreams, are being snuffed every single day this continues?
Yeah, and will be. And the problem with business situations is we'll hear the defense from some people. Well, can't you get the government loans, or just wait for the next bailout or something? What little is coming from the government,
If it comes,
if and when it comes, is just a drop in the bucket for what we need over a month or 2 months time.
And then, like, as John Allison was saying the other day, there might end up being some strings attached to that as well, which are only going to be revealed to you later. So that's not a comfortable situation to be in. And then, I wanted to, remind the viewers of the point that you made earlier as well, which is that at the same time that we're seeing these lockdowns be extended indefinitely in some states, not all states are doing this, but there are too many states around the country that are doing this exact same thing, and people are rebelling all over the place. But at the same time that you're seeing these be extended indefinitely, you are seeing the governors in some of these states, like California, extend the goalpost. So at first it was flatten the curve. And flatten the curve, why? So the hospitals aren't overwhelmed. And we're getting data that shows that the hospitals aren't even anywhere near being overwhelmed. And in fact, as James mentioned earlier, there's, healthcare workers are being furloughed, et cetera, being sent home. Maybe that's going to switch a little, because Newsom is going to allow them to actually treat cancer patients instead of only COVID patients, for example, right? But you have not seen a significant risk of spreading the disease there in Napa Valley either, right? And you don't see the hospitals being overwhelmed or any of that. So, from your perspective, you could say, I'm being kept from opening my gallery. I mean, gosh, you said you have over 3,000 square feet or something. You've got plenty of space for people to,
right? How many people
practice proper social distancing,
right,
and everything.
How many people do you get into your gallery at a time?
2, 4, 6. I mean, unless it's the weekend and it's busy, and even then, unless we're having an event, generally you're not looking at more than 7 to 10 people, and that's a lot.
And we have
that's a busy day.
and we have ability to control and regulate how many people come in when we reopen on Monday, and we're going to.
6
we're going
people.
to keep it to 6 just to make sure that anybody who comes in doesn't have to worry about being crowded at all. We have 6. We have how many? 7 different rooms.
Seven different
7 rooms
and 6 people.
7
so-
galleries.
Each have their
within-
own room.
Switch, and then you give the ding the bell, and they have to move to the next one.
So
Yeah.
social distancing is no problem.
To Amy's point, which she was mentioning about, there's no spread up here. There is a spread up here. It's fear. That's the only thing that's spreading here, and that's causing a lot of problems. It's sad.
Yeah. So they're changing the goalposts all the time. They're moving them. And in the meantime, you are told that you're just supposed to stay home and not work at your business. And so you decided no. So instead of just sort of furtively opening the gallery and not saying anything, you chose instead to be very public about this and, post a letter publicly, but then also I gather you published it as an opinion page or bought a full page ad in a local paper as well. Is that right? Or
But it wasn't an ad. It was an open letter, and it was an open letter to our city council, to our county board of supervisors, and to the governor's office. And it was forwarded to our editor as a letter to the editor, and they published it almost immediately, word for word. And at the very same time, I was forwarding it out to every city council member, every supervisor on our county board, because it's an interesting interplay with the counties and the cities as far as dealing with this health. It was issued by the county. The city has to, or is supposed to, enforce it. But even what you're seeing down in Orange County, now there's some I don't know what you call it, but they're not all on the same page, maybe.
yes.
And then you've got the state orders, which the state order is somewhat different than the county, and which one is who has to answer to who on what element of it, how much latitude are the counties allowed, and it's a real mess. But anyway, I wanted to go all the way up.
An artist and a writer and a businessman could have written it. It was a really eloquent and to the point letter.
Thank you. Tried to cover the bases, tried to keep the audience, their context in mind, and just lay it out straight. And this is what it is. This is the way it is, and this is what we have to do.
And can people who haven't seen the letter yet, can they find it at your website, which I've given at the YouTube video here, Cordair.com?
Not on our website. They can find it on the Napa Register's website, and normally they find a subscription wall, but they've opened up the COVID-19 section, and so that's available to the public there, except for some international people aren't able to get some of the US stuff.
And if anybody wants to contact us through our email, I'll be happy to forward links or copies.
Well, do you want to give a synopsis of the letter for people who hadn't had a chance to read it yet?
Oh, let's see. I wish I could pull that up. So it's been.
I can pull it up while you're talking.
Although it's only been Monday, so I can hit the high points.
You've had a lot of things happening between then and now, so yes.
It's been a little overwhelming.
I mean, so yeah. While she's pulling it up, what has been the reaction to the letter so far?
Well, nationally and internationally, it's been overwhelmingly positive from what we've heard. There have been hundreds of messages come in, both on social media and emails by the dozens a day from people that we, most of whom we have never heard from before, expressing their support. And it's been very, very heartening from that level. On the local level, it might be evenly split from what we've seen on the local comments on the local paper. There are absolutely detractors, and there are strong defenders on the other side.
So why are there detractors? What are their positions that they're expressing? And maybe we could even look behind. Why would they be hostile to this?
We've even received a couple of threatening phone calls at the gallery.
Yeah, I heard one today. You posted on Facebook.
Yeah, we did, because it's important for our safety that people know that that's there. I mean, it used to, I don't know, you've been the attorney, so or the lawyer, so whether we did the right thing with that or not, but
absolutely. I'm not sure that the call, as a former prosecutor, is criminally prosecutable, but they're getting right to the edge there.
Right, and it's so close to the edge that we're trying to put them on notice publicly that we are paying attention, and that voice is out there now. So if somebody does do something, it's absolutely traceable. We still have it, it can be traced through the phone company if it needs to be. The police department's being notified in all of that.
And
so
with regards
to do everything right
to the gallery, their security cameras are everywhere. They're in the windows. They're all over the gallery. There are signs that say "Smile, you're on camera." It's crazy.
Yeah.
So what is the content of these? What are they saying the objection is?
It's that it's stupid. The detractors see anybody doing anything beyond what's being allowed by the county's health order. They probably think even what's being allowed by the health orders is too much. They're the ones that we're all in this together. We stay home, and anybody who won't sacrifice another day, another week, another month, however long it takes to get to a point to where I guess whoever the governor's listening to decides that it's safe, is putting other lives at jeopardy. They apparently assume that any risk whatsoever of there being any increase or surge whatsoever requires that everyone continue to keep their lives on hold and keep the world stopped until a state authority decides it's safe to start inching back out again.
And none of them wants to be responsible, practically, not of these kinds, right? I mean, A, they want to keep control, and then B, they don't want to be blamed if there is, there probably is going to be a little bit of a surge, but from everything that we know, it's not going to overwhelm the hospitals. And that's really the only thing you can do. You have to go on with life. You can't live in fear this whole time, right?
I mean, you can't not live in order to prevent a few deaths, right? I mean, it's crazy.
I don't know what people think happens in an art gallery. There's no touching. People are looking. Maybe these people have never been to a museum or an art gallery. And then it occurred to me later that perhaps their only perception of an art gallery is what they see in a movie where there's a big opening and it's, everybody's standing around milling and talking, and that's every day. That's not every day in the life of an art gallery that's a small business.
And it won't be one of our days, and for the next few months at least, until
we're going to put into place every safety precaution that we can, and only allow by signage people to come into the gallery that can and want to and feel like they're able to. We want people who are afraid for themselves or rightly or otherwise to stay home.
Sure.
There's no big call, come to the gallery. All we've said is that we're opening.
Right, and you're taking reasonable precautions. It's not as though you're blind to the fact that there is a infectious disease out there. Right.
We'll have masks and hand sanitizer and lines outside, so people who can't figure out what 6 feet is, know where to stand.
Part of it too, constitutionally, I think, and we don't have time to get into that too much, I don't think. But one of the, what was the term earlier? You mentioned, Amy. For something to how the courts look at something to judge the constitutionality of it, what the standard is, but one of those has to be something that however much is necessary or no more than is necessary.
I mean, that, you know, what you usually should try to do is use the least restrictive means to achieve an end.
Try. I want to even go
Sure.
stronger on this. The Supreme Court has repeatedly stated that when a fundamental liberty, a fundamental right is at stake, the strictest level of scrutiny is to be applied. And that
Right. But the problem is,
let me finish. Even when there is a compelling state interest, the state is required to make an analysis to determine the least liberty restrictive alternative. No such analysis was done in California.
Okay, but as I understand, in terms of just doing business, then that only gets the level of scrutiny that is awarded economic activity, which is that whole reasonableness standard. You don't get strict scrutiny for just business operations, as I understand.
I think there are all kinds of other rights, though, that have been impugned here. And it's not just churches, it seems to me.
What's the case? Caroline Products footnote 4? Isn't that the one? Okay.
That's true. That
that's evil from law school. I finally pulled it up out of the cobwebs.
But of course, if a commercial activity does implicate a fundamental right, then the commercial standard is lower. But of course, they're not very consistent about that, are they? In any event, if, for example, someone were to say, hey, my right of transport, my right of assembly, which are protected, the Supreme Court has said, by the First Amendment, are affected by my inability to go look at art, then we're talking about a fundamental right, even though this is just a commercial transaction. And it's difficult.
No, and I mean, to be clear, I think it's bogus. I think that, of course, there should not be this double standard, this so-called higher, right? Your right to earn a living should be every bit as fundamental, per the court, as freedom of speech or any of these. Yeah. So, but again, it's this Caroline Products footnote 4 that instituted this whole double standard.
Of course. They have different Fourth Amendment rights. They have different free speech rights, commercials. But as I say, there are many cases, though, if a fundamental right is impugned, even in a commercial activity or setting, it'll be treated with strict scrutiny. But that depends on whether they regard it as fundamentally a commercial thing or their right to travel and assemble is being affected. And it's not clear which way they go in this, in my view, at all. What is clear is that even when it comes to things like basic right to travel, which the Supreme Court has acknowledged is real, or religion, or speech, all of those have been fundamentally affected by this lockdown. And so even there are going to be all kinds of non-commercial cases, it seems to me, people who just want to go to church or people who just want to get together and assemble. They have fundamental rights that are being impugned. And if you guys are part of that, it would seem to me that, and they have to consider the least liberty restrictive alternative. It's no option when a fundamental right.
Well, and I mean, you could argue that just the mere setup of your gallery, the organization of the pieces there, is part of your expression. And that is something that cannot even effectively be communicated online the way that it could if somebody is in. So there are, I believe, arguments to be made along those lines. Yes.
Art is protected by the First Amendment, surely.
And I'm wondering, when you talk about it being commercial, there are lots of people that come into us not to purchase. Some people come into the gallery, it's spiritual. It's something that they need in their lives, particularly in challenging times like this, where they're feeling.
Such a great point. They're telling people what's necessary and not. And it seems to me that in a moment like this, well, personally, my need for art, my need for spiritual fuel is all the greater. You guys are all the more necessary, it seems to me. The ability just to get out of my house and experience some, in-person, firsthand art, to stroll through your gallery is all the more important at a time like this.
We're essential.
I think
someone on the chat earlier mentioned the experience of going to a live music show. And I've been watching Tamir Hendelman and his weekly shows online every Friday, and that has its own charm, certainly, but it is not the same. And, one of the things going to the gallery, yes, we want to, practice proper social distancing, but even just being in the presence of fellow art lovers in that space is part of the experience as well, right? I wanted to ask you, because at a certain point we are probably going to have to cut off a bit early, and it sounds weird, but it's because Yaron Brook is going to start in about 10 minutes with his show, special time. Reason is because he had to conform his show to Amish Adalja's schedule. He's going to interview Amish, and it'd be nice to hear Amish in more than just a soundbite. But I wanted to ask you, you've talked about the balance in the response that you've received from kind of citizens, lay people generally to your letter, that you've gotten mostly supportive from outside your community, and then kind of split within your community. Maybe some of the people, they feel threatened by what you're doing. I couldn't imagine exactly why, given the circumstance there, but I was going to ask what the authorities, what's been any response from the authorities?
Yeah. Well, do you expect anything to happen on Monday?
Doors will be open.
That's partly why we did it with the timing that we did, giving a full week's notice. Here's the opportunity. They have had the opportunity to adjust the order here to reflect the reality, and I wanted to give them that opportunity. That's enough time, because they've changed the order before on a dime and gone and included on the second round that came through. They decided it was okay for realtors to show houses and stuff. So, you know, they can and have adjusted, tweaked their order very quickly. A full week I thought was plenty of time to, here's your chance. This is what we have to do. Let us do this. Do what you need to do, adjusting your order to allow us to do this, or decide how you're going to respond. Fine. But at this point, we've received no indication that they are going to make a change to anything, and we do expect them to. I want to be careful how they say it. We've received no indication that that they are going to respond other than what they may have responded last Monday when I issued it. So whether that involves, you know, initial warnings, citations, it could be a string of citations. It could be daily citations for every day that we're open. I don't think that there's any desire for them to take it beyond that at this point, but the way that I'm actually a little more concerned about how far Newsom is willing to push things and try to keep everybody clamped down as this thing seems to start unraveling for him.
I gather he's getting some pushback today in Sacramento, starting in just about 20 minutes or so.
I think at about noon, they're going to start a rally there. But even, I mean, particularly talking about like Huntington Beach, our situation here, I relate it to what's happening. It's walking on a beach or being out on a beach. It is a physical activity. Granted, you could say, well, you can still be alive without being on the beach, but it's nurturing. It's something you need to live the way that we live as Californians, and that's all we're trying to that's all we are going to be offering to the exact same thing. So I'm hopeful that larger entities like the cities, like Huntington Beach, them pushing back as hard as they are, I hope that will help open things up for those of us who don't have those resources or that clout with the state. And I think James could tell me otherwise, but I think the principles that are explored and tested by cases like that, if those go to court, we should pretty closely fall under the same thing. But you know, I don't know. Let's just say that we have good legal advice available to us, and that we've already been accessing, and so we're going to be doing this wisely and safely and with full intention. And
but in case they handcuff you and cart you off, you got someone you can call.
That and knowing how to deal with that situation, right? We're going to lose this. We're just not going to lose. We can't. And this is at the most basic level, this is life and death for us. This is our lives, and we can't live it otherwise. And that's that. So we're willing to do whatever we have to do to fight to regain that and to maintain that, and for our artists too, because we have 30 artists. They're like family to us. We have long-term relationships,
20-year relationships,
and their families, their kids.
Some amazing
what we
artists.
do supports them, and what we do today supports that art that gets created a month from now, a year from now. What we sell today for them helps pay their bills to where they can keep doing what they're doing. So all the art in our not all the art, but a lot of the art in the gallery now is because of the sales that we made for them last year, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. That all adds up over time. And we are not willing to just sit here in the house and let that go. No, just no. That's it. No.
Well, you guys are heroes. All I can say is,
and that is
heroes,
why you
real heroes.
Definitely why you had to do it. I do understand, and you are doing it in, I would say, the classiest and most reasonable way possible. As I said, you're not doing it furtively. You did publish your intention to do it, and you presented it in terms that to me seem quite reasonable, which are that you have a space where people can be even more safe while perusing the art and having this wonderful uplifting experience as they could when, if they're going grocery shopping, they have to touch things, right? Yeah. And
we're safer,
at our place.
We're safer than
much safer than the supermarket or Walmart, right?
Any other shopping housing experience in Napa County. I'll leave you with this one. Well, I don't know if we're wrapping up yet or not, but
pretty quick we have to. Yeah.
Here, as you shift over to your on show, and I know you're on regularly with them anyway, but the poster over his head to the right as you're facing him of a new height, Larson's with the architect looking at that. Mm-hmm. That came from our gallery. That's one of Brian Larson's pieces. And just think about the value in what's happened over this past 24 years with what our purpose and what we've tried to provide. That image is right there on the wall in his room, helping fuel him, that came right after 9/11. That was part of the response to, we need to keep building. We need to take
that
this.
Painting was pre 9/11.
Well, I know it was, but it was, the poster was issued.
Okay.
The poster was put out after that. So that was in response to the last huge crisis that we had,
yes.
9/11, and that art helps get us back on our feet and helps say we need to keep going, we need to keep living. And that's what's happening in that image of a new height. That's somebody looking at an architectural plan, and there's even a little World Trade Center in the background on that cityscape. But part of what we're trying to provide, what we need to provide, is the spiritual fuel and the vision of living and living well and living courageously and not being driven by fear for the rest of our mortal existence. We need that. George Washington had a play put on for his troops in Valley Forge. My fifth great grandfather was there, and he used art to help rally his troops to survive everything that they did, and to keep fighting through very, very, very dark days. And we need art for that now, and people need art for that. We see that in the gallery all the time anyway. People get such emotional fuel to deal with
serious things,
the bad things, that deaths and trials and tribulations of every sort. So
Definitely.
We need art all the more, and we need your heroism as an inspiration all the more in these times too. So both of you, thank you so much. My God, what heroes!
Thank
you for doing this in such a classy way, and I wish you the best. I actually wish that all of those kind of layers of government that all have conflicting ideas and rules and everything else, that they sort of like trip all over each other in an old Charlie Chaplin movie style, not knowing how to enforce this. And actually you might see nothing at all on Monday. I'd like to maybe
Thank you, founders, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes, yes. It's like our own little mini checks and balances in California, right? I'd like to, if I could, maybe follow up with you guys next Wednesday just to see how it's going. I'm interested in following. Let's see how it goes. I'll be in touch with you guys.
Okay.
And that would be wonderful. Yes, that would be wonderful.
In the
You guys,
gallery.
Because the gallery
have a beautiful weekend. And yeah, I'm going to give everybody a chance to go watch your own interview, Amish. Like I said, it's nice to see him long form and not short form. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Thanks everyone
Stay
out
safe.
there.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody over at YouTube.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.